A shabba dabba a shabba a shabba being invited to a church group on Sunday, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping my skin actually clears up, otherwise it might undermine a great deal of my purpose in even being there. I painfully purchased iPhone 11. Oh my days, that could have been it this week, and I don't even know I've never paid 700 for a phone. I don't think I've paid 700 for anything. Not even a car. It's quite something, really. And then they're asking for that 150 on top to secure the product. I'm not even using it yet. I think the one saving grace is that I've had this phone on contract for about a year, and I don't really use it because the internet browsing capability ain't that great. So I was actually able to transfer the SIM, that's one thing, and I could actually browse using this phone. I'm still going to hold on to this for the purposes of music, as it's got that, and that, which is fabulous. Actually, the thing I found great is BlackBerry actually released another phone. And I saw it trending for like 400, I thought, oh, half price. Even when I look at the trading, you trade in something like up to 150 on your previous iPhone after you pay 700, so oh, look at that. That reminds me, I need to go bank and actually insure this and my housing thing. So yeah, that's constructive. But what made me think, now I'm part of the in crowd, now I can screen record on Snapchat. And that's the way people even look at you sometimes. Like, I think I blatantly holler at gal with the phone, not this. Actually, I've brought this out once or twice, but I think I blatantly holler at gal with the phone. They see the crack screen and they're like, he's gonna have to jump through hoops. Whereas when they see this, oh my god, he's broke, but he's got money. So I don't even know why I bought this. Probably some money laundering. Just need to clear out my account. There's my new device, and it's gonna change the game. I think I'm gonna have my other WhatsApp account on it as well. So one of those things where you make great sacrifices, and why I was saying that is because I also bought a flat bench so I could start my rehab program. I donated like £400 to the cows. They didn't even send me a thank you, man, a thank you. And it was interesting because I think you should pay for things you use, show gratitude and appreciation, compensate people. But I had more reservations about buying the flat bench, and I needed that than buying the phone. Not gonna lie, I was in the store for like an hour, even though I knew what I wanted. Can't lie to you there, I will be honest. I haven't called up free to see if they would give me like cheaper, and they were like, nah, let's buy it from the store. So 700 for a phone. I even had to make myself feel better by looking at reviews, and I was like, oh, the other ones cost 1,000, so. And it's like I had this money lying about on my account, and I've not yet invested. I did think about clearing my student debt. That's not yet materialized. I thought about what I could actually invest in, and nothing's yet materialized. I'll probably do that Forex stuff this week, if not just the stock market. I have a feeling the stock market is my calling. Trading, because I'm always moving about, never one place. Of course, yeah, I do the football thing, and that's my bread and butter, but I think you need more than that. Just something that you've done by yourself almost, because football is like you're getting paid by the boss as well. Whereas the trading thing, I think it's more you're leading, and it's a good cover up as well. Instead of just telling people that I clean bins, I can also say, oh, I trade here and there. Now superficial people are, that's how they pride themselves. Today I was also going to return to money issues, as we got up to the first chapter last time, and I don't even know how long I've been chatting my foolishness, so I'm going to estimate that 7 minutes and call this one to an end at, let's say, 23, so that'll be 15. So yeah, I want to call this at an end in 23 minutes. It's going to be 38, yeah. So I was dealing with this book last time. Haven't got my pencil again. Let's go. I might also even get interrupted as I am expecting a phone call. As it goes, so it goes when you're doing this on a shoestring budget. And although I said I do have this iPhone, it's like the money in my account, the savings, it's not great. Let's put it that way. And also a couple new appliances I have to purchase if I can't get them off Free Cycle, studentfreestuff.com. I think it's gonna put a little hole in my pocket. So that's my financial situation. That's what even led me to this guy. He wrote the book about getting black folk to sell, black folks' guide to big business, I think black folks' guide to success, something along those lines. So he was a financial guru. Everyone has that phase where they go through Rich Dad Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich, and all those CEO mindset books. So eventually you look, where's the black choice? You get Dennis Kimbrough, Joe Clingham, and the like. I think he even stumbled upon Claude Anderson. And what's the other one? John Watkins? Bruce Watkins? Another one of those names. You know the one who got caught out? Saying like, oh, these dumb Negroes, yeah, they'll buy anything. So yeah, Boyce Watkins, he got caught out. You know the wealth gap. Most of us, we're like farmers as well, I think, as black folk. We're skint. We ain't got nothing. And that's what keeps us in that destabilized state. Or that begging state almost, where nothing's really going for you. And you can't even focus on leisure because you're living from hand to mouth. Day by day, Mantis, Keith Murray. So these are pressing questions. And it brings me back to even primary school. You're trying to trade in sweets for something. That's how difficult it is for us growing up. Trying to find our way, trying to become something, trying to get money together. And even when you think about college, your first independence, you're relying on EMA money, like £30 a week. Then your EMA bonuses, because you're not always working at 16. Thinking what can I sell? Some going to music, some going to drugs, some going to sport, football, some do other things. That question about shall I continue my education so I could get a career, shall I start an apprenticeship? And these very difficult questions which we're going through at those formative years, and how you bounce through different things, and the stress, you know, it's league tables, that's a big thing, isn't it? What your future's going to be after those 20 years, 21 even, depends what your taste is. And what you're going to devote yourself to, and this idea of life planning. And I'm going to be here at this phase of my life, I'm going to be there at another one, how it doesn't even go to plan a lot of times, and growing pressures and expectations if you assume those definitions and rules which come with certain rules and identities, and feeling the need to please people, and that question emerges. So what are you doing with yourself? Oh, bumming around on benefits, scounging. How do you respond to people? How do you look in people's eyes? And I think it even starts earlier in school, where you're going to be popular, you don't want to be chastised, you don't want to be the guy with the high-tech bag, or the Ascot trainers. New Balance kind of got their bringing. So it's difficult when everyone's there with their designer and you got the pony hoodie. It's not the one. It's not exactly Puma, is it? Even when you look at how you incorporate brandings in school, everyone wears the blazer and you kind of rebel against that by wearing a t-shirt underneath the blazer, or rocking total 90s to motives. Seriously? Want to be part of the in crowd, not wanting to be rejected by them, and finding a sense of being and belonging. And I was even reflecting upon 3:30. You know, you finish school, you get home. Some of the stuff we used to watch, both weekend morning television was one thing. I was looking at Power Rangers this week. I was like, wow, this really took up a significant chunk of my childhood. Even thinking about purchasing Lucky Dip or goodie bags from the shops. The amount of money I think we throw away, if not just around, growing up. And the only income was, I guess, a paper round or selling the occasional thing here and there. And even then, some of the things you sell is sympathy buys. And what I'm alluding to is the dearth in understanding of finance or cash flow, to use I think much more appropriate term. And that was actually just 5 minutes chatting. I'm impressed. I thought I was waffling for much longer than that. But this is the stuff I was reflecting upon and our development, psychosocial, emotive development, and the like, what it is to go through life phases, what's important to us at different stages, what are our priorities, what are our plans, and even things about attraction and desire, and how that feeds into the idea of belonging and forming who you are. Language, it's like when you're growing up, there's people who speak different languages to you in school, and you think school is your world. Then you realise it's nothing to do with life, or it's very little to do with life. How your style positions are so slanted and distorted, how there's much more to it. So these things come up as well. And questions, people question their own self or their decisions. You might be called out, you might get caught out, and you may not react how you thought you were going to react in that test when you actually tried. How the image you have of yourself clashes with what you actually do, how you respond to things, and being confused by your responses. As Amos Wilson says in Falsifications, some of the most significant things that have ever impacted upon our lives are not stuff we even deliberately reflect upon. What shapes you, what molds you? I think how Esther Perel says, if you want to know how a person loves, study how they were loved. So again, if you want to know how a person needs to be loved, study how they were loved as a child, and what ultimately structured their way of thinking and patterned their behavior, their habits. And that's how much money dominates this conversation without us even really reflecting upon it, because that demographic, where you are, where you're born, where you're going to be, where you're going to live, it plays such a significant role in a number of things, associations, connections, who it is that you even speak with, and how you speak, how you learn language, you learn the way you speak based upon where you're on, where you are, which isn't necessarily even much to do with you. And how you even code switch. You speak one way here, the next way there, you adjust your pattern based on who it is that's looking at you in that particular moment. How we speak different languages at set times, how depending on what aspects of the language you use, you can speak a very or convey very mixed messages or distinctive thoughts. These are just some of the challenges and things that we have to do with growing up, and I think the key thing to do with growing up is breaking away from a crowd and trying to define things for yourself and not feeling a need to fit in and be subsumed, or a part of being distinct, breaking away from patterns. And I think largely seeing yourself accurately, precision is a key thing. So to dispel of the myths and false ideas you have of yourself, the false consciousness, and see who you are away from the pretense and the facade, as it were. These are key things. And what shapes us, and that's again where this text comes in, because I maintain that males are externally focused, females, I think they get a more internal sense of self or direction, whereas males, it's always about the doing, the duty, the performance, the product, and that takes you outside of who you are and actually engaging or connecting to yourself. And numbness, as Lincoln Parker put it, even learning that in the end nothing really matters, and how a sense of despondency can quickly emerge from that. So that's why I deeply connect with this, how we see how status and money shapes our life, despite being told that education and hard work will take us places, how we get overlooked blatantly, how we get ignored, dismissed almost, disrespected and insulted, and how what we were essentially indoctrinated with was so false and misleading. They told us one thing, but it doesn't even work. It's painful to realize that it doesn't do anything for us. You know, these ideas which we took as ourselves were nothing to do with us, and yet we were there ready to defend and die for them, never realizing they were never ours to begin with. So these are some of the revelations. I mean, you're trying to make sense out of upbringing or growing up or being dragged up. How you answer these questions, how you interrogate these ideas, defines a lot, I think. Which is why, for a number of reasons, I've always been drawn to this most excellent text. And we're on page 6 now. And we've been through E. Franklin Fraser last time. Something about the bronze is here at the bottom. And again, even being part of the conversation, It's like, I think Jordan Maxwell said, you need to know what happened on this planet before you got here. Well, just when people are speaking about things, you can't make sense out of it. How can you process that? What do you need to read or study to learn in order to finally find a place in that conversation where your voice is relevant? And that's when you're growing up. People speak all sorts of languages. I don't think you really pay attention to their accents, their names, the words, the language, why they speak a certain way, why they behave in a certain manner. It gets overlooked, and there's so much rich information you could be taken on board and actually going places with. Thinking about language, thinking about travel, thinking about investments at that age, but we get stuck thinking about being job seekers, as it were. It says here that black people are pushed to worship whiteness and its accompanying materialism, and questions like that. Like when you ask yourself, what is Jesus white? Or why do we have to die? Or what's in space? And all of that. How did this white group come into existence? Why are we known as black? Why do we ultimately take on board terms like African? What is the metaphysical appeal of these notions, as it were? How do we see ourselves? It goes into blacks being terrorized growing up. I'm trying to find a place actually for this. So here, I'm just going by the notes that I have. It says, we see the black woman still measuring progress by how closely social, cultural, and economic and material matters in our community approximated the existing white world. Just speaking about the definition black females have with themselves. And remember, black females are largely the ones who are going to be shaping the children, as T.C. Wright and Shahrazad Ali Wright. I was also wondering if T.C. Wright is Terry Clare. So that came up as well. I like what he says about interrogating black female mannerisms, as we take for granted the divinity of blackness, and we got all of this divine goddess rhetoric. Here we go. And this is a text I've not actually read. Was Andrew Hacker, Two Nations. I think Malcolm even quoted it. It was from 1992. He quotes on page 11. He says, black women, like all women, are perceived as being less assertive and more accommodating. Thus, there is the hope that black women will show less resentment or hostility and will be less apt to present themselves as quote-unquote black in demeanor and appearance. ... In addition, black and white women tend to mingle more easily in workplace settings. This is partly because women tend to feel less tense about race, ... at least to a far greater extent than men are willing to do. I actually put the words wow next to it. It says, if they must have racially mixed workforces, things will go better if they consist largely of women. This key theme being women are not seen as a threat to the establishment. And I was actually writing separate notes, as in, okay, this passage says that, let me summarize it on this page, but I actually just got it on, it got jarring. So I just left that alone, and I just underlined key passages and tried to find my thought through that. He also says here, I think he's quoting him still, I like this part, yeah, Mr. Hacker says, quote unquote, we're also afraid that after he takes our money at knife point, he'd then take another moment and do something to us in retribution for what our people have done to his people. That's our fear of Willie Horton. That he's not just a criminal, not just a rapist, but he's part of a black insurrection. So this idea of ontology or being, how a black is never seen as just being, they're always doing something, it's always in rebellion. To exist is to be in rebellion, is to threaten white notions of civility or polity almost. Just being outside of large incarceration is seen as a challenge to white power, as it were. That key passage really makes you question what it means to be unconscious or just implicit bias, implicitly biased. And these other notions, just you existing is a problem. Which goes back to the whole thing about these, not even false allegations, but calls, phone calls all the time when you're walking Hello, there's a Negroid. I mean, there's a baboon. I mean, there's a cave knuckle. Black African American Negroid Africanoid standing on the corner aggressively staring at the pavement. Phone calls all the time. It's to do that terror of just having you there, because you might be Nat Turner. Nat Turner could be in you. So yeah, this is our experience, and how we come to learn that we imagine we're all the same because all of this, we all bleed one blood color, and then you find out that how they practice things is very different, and how they frame the thought along the most ineffectual lines. You know, the PSHE lesson about, can't we all just get along? Martin Luther King, God, hold hands. They're not really going to give you a Derek Bell breakdown of the situation with realism, or Frank Wilderson with the pessimism. Are they? Or even Anthony Farley, I think it was, talks about the law as death. We're not going to get those breakdowns. We're going to be deluded into inaccurate information, because that's part of the I was going to say conspiracy. I think not even collusion. I think that's part of the agreement, the social contract, the silent covenant, as it were. We cannot speak about White Club, and we cannot show blacks that we're obscuring the fact that we are deeply invested in this regime of domination, which takes their possession and robs them of vital resources and information. Okay, there's also the theme about, if you're a quote-unquote smart student, you're learning how to be a better white person, whether you're white or not. I mean, there is a lot. He even goes into the television's taste between black males and black females, the books that they read, and how that shapes their thinking, and how ultimately what he's trying to show in this first chapter is how they are pulling apart. I even somewhat think it might even be useful to do a breakdown of the 17 chapters. But at the same time, I know I'll sit down and listen to 17 of those issues. Okay, so here's the one now where it really gets spicy. It talks about manhood problems that won't go away. And this is for me where it really starts to pick up. Even one of the questions he asks, can his black woman see him as a man if she sees the world so much like white people do? And for me, those pages is summed up in that part underlined there. I start talking about getting to the essence of the text, the purpose behind the person writing. And here's the part where he really starts to interrogate things, because he goes to David Walker's appeal to the coloured citizens of the world, and then goes to Nat Turner, and he defines manhood. And I really do like this, and these are questions we need to ask. He says, on page 23, a man faces and eliminates his enemy, even if it costs him his life, in order that his family and his people be saved from the evil of that enemy. It is here that David Walker did not bite his tongue. And whereas many black writers, leaders, etc. have been quick to talk about dying for freedom, few have talked about black people killing for freedom. He even goes on to quote him as saying, the man who will not fight under our Lord and Master Jesus Christ and the glorious and heavenly cause of freedom and of God to be delivered from the most wretched, abject and servile slavery that ever people was afflicted with since the foundation of the world to the present day, or to be kept with all of his children in slavery. Again, what is important to us? Not just what we fight for, but what are we willing to die for? I think I might just end it here, because this chapter does again jump on. But we've made a little bit of programmage-izzy. The next chapter is page 40, and right now I'm on page 24. So he starts to ask these key questions about what is manhood and male identity. Well, this one really gives you more of the essence of the text, and I might even read ahead and prioritize what I want to share. And as you can see in the back of books, I usually write a few more notes, and I'll Spain. Can I use that? Is that in the word guide? So I tend to highlight key passages. So again, appreciate you tuning in. If anyone's been offended by anything said, written, or mentioned, nothing personal. Take it collectively. No. Okay. I'm gonna milk it. I've actually got 6 minutes, so I actually gonna cut off there. The last one went on forever, innit?